All right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me loud and clear? Welcome to the mental application study for this week. Following us from wherever, we're glad to have you in the study tonight. Good to have you, with us. And if you are just joining the platform, of course, great to have you, study with us. And if you have always been a member of our community, conversant with Beyond the School. Should I say welcome back? All right, good to have everyone literally. Welcome to tonight's mental application study, or this morning, or afternoon, or evening, middle of the night, whenever you're listening to this or watching this from. All right, so just a quick one. The mental application study is a platform at Beyond the School Wall that focuses on, enabling the mental capacity of young individuals for productivity. So the intention is to bring classes, curriculums, teachings, models your way that aim to help you develop your mental capacity for productivity, develop your intelligence, heighten your intellectual capacity to enable you become a productive individual within the society or whatever industry of expression or sphere of influence you have chosen to express your giftedness and abilities. Okay, so if you are new to our platform, you can check out our e-library, that's our digital library, on Telegram at Beyond the School, so you can familiarize yourself with our thought patterns. And you can check also our archive on YouTube, the mental application study under Beyond the School. The channel's name is Beyond the School, and checking the playlist, the mental application study, to help you, you know, synchronize properly with our thoughts pattern. Okay, with that being said, let's jump right into the class or study for this session. So we're going to be talking to the topic selective intelligence, and if you're conversant with the mental application study, you know we are big on intelligences, right? And of course, even beyond the school as a whole, all of our classes, all of our platforms, all of our schools are, tailored to help an average young person develop intelligence. Okay, so what is selective intelligence, or what are you going to be learning from the concept selective intelligence tonight? One of the things an average person, especially if you're a young individual listening or watching the session or the class tonight, you need to understand that what allows or what drives the world is the level of intelligence that you have actually developed. And we're not first talking about, there are diverse intelligences, of course. There is emotional intelligence, there is spiritual intelligence, if you will. There is what's spatial intelligence, there is social intelligence, there is a whole lot of intelligence. Military intelligence, okay. Okay, so there is a lot of intelligence right there. And the whole idea of the world before the intelligence is not, intelligence does not first have to do with brain. It's not brain, like, oh, no, it's not. It's intelligence is not how smart you are, neither is intelligence how brainy you are. Intelligence is how much you have learned how to use certain things to solve a problem. Does it make you sense? Most times we don't understand these words, and so we interuse them, and then, oh, well, there was a difference between being intelligent and being smart, or being knowledgeable, or being brainy, and being all of those things. Intelligence is not even intelligence. Being intelligent, in quotes, intelligence has to do with learning how to use whatever it is to solve a problem. Does it make you a lot of sense? So intelligence has to do with a whole lot of creative strength. Of course is truth. Okay, so we are not talking from the standoff point of maybe book smarts. We're talking from the standoff point of knowing how to use. If you're talking about let's say emotional intelligence, it has to do with knowing so much how to use emotions to to solve problems in quotes. Use emotions to channel abilities, using emotions, learning how to manage people's emotion, learning how to navigate your way through the chaos of human emotional baggage, as it were. You're talking about spiritual intelligence, knowing how to use spiritual laws, spiritual knowledge to solve a problem. Does it make you sense? So when you say someone is emotionally intelligent, it means it's not first the person has learned how to what's it called, manage their emotions. Well, that's one of the phases to it, is that the person has known or knows how to use emotion as a tool. He knows how to manage and, forgive me to use the word, manipulate emotions to get results. Does it make you a lot of sense? Okay, so today we're going to be talking about selective intelligence, and this is one intelligence that an average young person needs to learn and develop, because this is going to help and place you on a pedestal for success and extreme, progressive growth. Are we still together? All right, let's jump right in. We intend not to make our classes, so long in recent times. I'll try as much as possible to explain, but we're going to stay within the, the confine of the time that we have together. All right, let's get started. So there is this beautiful quote from Nicholas Talib. I hope I pronounced the name properly. Nicholas Talib. I came across it some, you know, a while back now. And it has literally not left me. And it's very simple. He said, "Be mindful, extremely selective, and very intentional about the people, information you allow in your life. Intelligence is not knowing everything, it is the ability to identify and ignore things that are not relevant." In brackets, avoiding false patterns. This statement is very, very powerful. Literally, forgive me, I'm trying to pick a pen, change my pen color right here. Okay, this statement is actually very powerful. Literally, it's self-explanatory in itself, but let me try, to explain it in the best of my capacity. He said, "Be mindful, be extremely selective, and very intentional about the people." One thing, and information. One thing I have figured out with young people is this concept of this inability to select the kind of information, especially in a world, we live in a world right now where everything is trying to gain your attention. Everything is looking, somebody said something, and he said, in a world that you have all of the information, in a world that you have all of the information, people are still lost. And it's I don't know what figure of speech to call that, but it's so true, forgive me, that we have you have information available almost at the at the snap of your finger, literally. And yet, in the pool of this information and knowledge, many persons are still lost as to what to do. Why is it that I know so much but I'm not effective? Which is one of the major challenge of most people, that you can know so much but yet you are still not productive. I think it was in our last class on the mental application study, I was explaining that there is something called knowledge trap. You really can be trapped in knowledge where you know enough, or you know so much, let me use that word, that you don't know what to do with what you know. It's a knowledge trap. Many persons that are knowledge driven have been trapped in that point before, where you know so much, you've read, you've studied, you've listened to podcasts, you listen to whatever comes your way, and then you are filled up with that information, but you can't utilize any of that information. It's because selective intelligence is not in play. You need to be very mindful of the kind of information and the kind of people you great people select. Great people don't embrace all. When you for instance, I don't know how many persons know a little bit about fishing. I don't know so much, but the little I know. So when you throw in your nets, throwing the net into the ocean or the river or the whatever they throw the net into, and then you drag the net out with all of the catch. Not all of what is in that net is actually edible in terms of fish, which is what you're trying to, except if you're trying to catch something else. Fish, not everything in that net is fish. Then now comes a sorting, and this sorting is one of the should I say byproduct of understanding selective intelligence, if you put it into context of what we're trying to study tonight. That you don't just allow everything. You don't it's not everything you listen to, and it's not everything you read. Trust me, I've been there. As a young individual that wants to try to know everything, I've read things I shouldn't have read. I've feasted my eyes on things I shouldn't have, that I had no business learning. Did they come with their consequences? Of course, yes. And some of them, crazy backlash, forgive the word, literally, and it was terrible. Some of this information took months before you could unlearn them, and it's easier to learn. It's very hard to unlearn what you know. It's just like someone telling you, the sky is not blue. Even if the person has all the facts to tell you the sky is not blue, it's hard for you to unlearn that reality that the sky is not blue, because every time you look at the sky, there is a preconceived notion in your mind that tells you this thing is blue, for crying out loud, and that is how this thing is. So selective intelligence saves you a whole lot of headache. Are we still together? All right, now what is selective intelligence? Selective intelligence is, in this context, refers to the choice to seek out, because it is a choice. You really choose, of course it's a choice, okay? To the choice to seek out and engage with information, opinions, and people that align with one's belief. Please note this words, forgive me, one's belief, goals, and growth. The reason what makes selective intelligence effective is that the individual has what do you call it now, has beliefs, has certain beliefs that they upheld cultures, they have goals, and they have a growth in view. There is something they are hoping to achieve. There's a vision in front of them they are hoping to become. Does it make a lot of sense? This is where selective intelligence comes in. I wrote here, just a simple note, and I said one of the secrets of great men is that they do not focus on everything, but rather explore everything around their focus, which of course is truth. One of the secrets of great men, I heard this word, from a model of mine, Oluwatomisin, and he will say one of the secrets of what makes great men great is not because great men don't read everything. And this concept of jack of all trade, master, is it, how do they say that saying? There is a full full, what is it called? There's a full saying to that stuff, jack of all trade, master of none, but sometimes better than the master of one. Is good, it is a good statement to make yourself feel good. But in the place of professionalism, a jack of all trade cannot, and I repeat, cannot be called into those kind of conversation. When it comes to professionalism and certain persons are being held responsible as captains of industry, you can't say, oh, I know plenty things about, I know a whole lot of stuff. People are looking for, peculiarity, they are looking for specialization, they are looking for specificity. Does it make a lot of sense? And this is how it works. So great men do not focus on everything, but rather that one thing that they focus on, they would explore everything around it. This is what makes people's concentration, what do you call it, is in chemistry, I think it's called corrosiveness, where it is highly concentrated. This is what makes people's life extremely beautiful, giving them extreme speed. Because I wrote here and I said selective intelligence build focus, which is the goal. You can't, of course, now this is the of course, everything has a side effect to it. Now it's going to make you very narrow-minded, or narrow, have a very narrow view of life, and this is where you have to create a balance. I'll be very wicked not to let you know it has its side effects. It gives you a very narrow perspective to life, which you have to learn the balance. And this is the balance, is not for you to now have a wide perspective to life either, is that you are open to new things and new ideas within the context of your goal. Does it make a whole lot of sense? So you're not trying to learn plenty things. You are only trying to learn what is, important for your growth. For instance, I didn't know this was what this was called, but the more I grew, the more I just told myself, and I said, I think there's just something you have to focus on. I learned this from my model. He will say every man is known for one thing. You can diversify within that one thing, but every man is known for one thing. You can't do more. Your lifespan, your energy level is not enough to do more than one thing per your lifetime. Literally take it, forever. People build many things out of one thing, but it's not that they did plenty things, and then you don't have that ability to diversify like you think. The more you diversify, you are sharing energies, and you're going to become all very soon. Selective intelligence builds focus, and focus in turn gives you speed. When you see a man has speed, and he's 20 something and he has achieved forgive me please, he's 20 something and he has achieved XYZ, you're like, when will I become? Is not most times, it's not what you think. Most times you are not doing, that person is not doing as much as you do. If you're going to talk about effort, you impute more effort than that person making results. But because Africa, especially if you're listening from borders of Africa is given to energy, effort. Like my model will say, Africa is just effort driven. So once it's effortful, you are happy. You are only you're running 5 different, organizations. Not that they are subsidiaries of themselves, just different in different industries. And you're like, why am I getting tired all the time? You don't have that capacity. You are not, what's the right word now? You are not omnipotent, neither are you omniscient. You are not omnipresent. You can't be everywhere at the same time. You don't have that energy for that kind of stuff. Selective intelligence build focus. For instance, there was a point of my life, someone would literally ask me and say, how do I do, let's say for instance, and I teach these things on our magnet school, not this way, this is what I want to share now. How do you do, maybe personal retreats? Not the prayer kind, I mean the intellectual kind. And what books do you read? That kind of stuff. People want to know the kind of materials you read. And a phase of my life, I used to read anything that comes my way. Even if you sold me, maybe stuff in paper, I would eat whatever is in the paper and read the paper. It was good for that phase, but a point came, you want to learn something particular to growth. For instance, you're trying to, let's imagine, build, finances. You don't, maybe you're not financially, you're trying to build your finances from scratch. There are materials that helps you build finances from scratch. If you're trying to scale up, there are things you need to go, not just read, and you don't read any book on finance, and you don't read any author. You are selective. Why? You attach what you learn. And this is how I've learned to do it. You attach what you want to learn, or what you're learning, to a particular specific goal. What am I trying to don't identify the goal from the material you're trying to study or from the knowledge you're trying to get. Not saying, okay, so this book I bought now, I want to, when I'm done reading this book, I want to move, from 10,000 to 500,000. That's not how it works. You have the goal, then the goal points you to the material you need to learn. This is why people, this is why, people say, oh, this person reads a lot. Nobody literally in quotes likes reading. It's strenuous. It's mentally exhausting. Let's be, honest with ourselves. Nobody literally likes reading. But what makes us study, attend conferences, attend seminars, pay for courses and materials is not just because we want to show it off. It's because we have a goal, and this goal dictates that you have this kind of knowledge. So on the strength of that goal, you specifically seek for that kind of knowledge. So if somebody brings something else to you, you're like, no, I don't want this. This is where selective intelligence comes to play. Does it make it so? When, for instance, if I want to get your personal retreats, there are certain things you focus on. For me, discovery, whatever helps me aid my capacity for discovery. Literally, it's like 4 of them: discovery, innovation, creativity, resourcefulness, literally. So when it comes to, I have a goal. Now, what is discovery for me is your capacity for recognition. Because if you cannot recognize opportunities and you cannot recognize problems, you literally mess yourself up. So what can I do to develop my capacity for, heightened discovery? That's the goal. What can I do, learn, pick up that helps me develop that ability to recognize opportunity? So that's what you're focused on. So you're looking for materials that, that address that subject matter. So most times when you're reading the material, in fact, what you are looking for could just be in, and it has happened to me a couple of times where you got a material or a book and all you're looking for was in chapter 5, and that's the only thing you're going to read, or that's the only point you're going to stay. So you could be reading chapter 5 for 3 months because that's where the information you need is, and you've not learned it enough, so you can't move on. And once you learn, you learn that stuff, that's the end of that book. Just shut it down and keep it as reference and move on. Selective intelligence. Are we still together? Selective intelligence builds focus, and focus in turn gives you what? Speed. You're looking for speed. Focus on, build that selective intelligence. You don't learn everything. Okay, all right, let's move on. So I wrote here and I said, okay, developing selective intelligence. How to develop selective intelligence? I'm only going to share with us 3 practical, stuff to develop selective intelligence, and we're done for this, study. It's going to be very short moving forward, extremely short, moving forward, so that, it's easy for an average person to listen to over and over again if they want to. All right, number 1, under how to develop selective intelligence. Number 1, strategic focus and prioritization. Hey, Jesus. Okay, strategic focus and building priorities. That's the word, okay? Most times pronunciation will just take your teeth off. Okay, so strategic focus and building, priorities and all of that. Okay, first off, develop. We've spoken about this, so just to emphasize, develop goals and then consciously seek what helps you achieve these goals, not snack up on everything available. I wrote and I said, you need to understand that time and energy are finite resources. And I think an average person has not, understood this concept of time and energy. You don't have all the time to be frolicking around. You're not going to have that energy forever. You're not going to be strengthened enough forever. Let me say something about attention span. The older you get, the what is it called? The more your attention span reduces. Of course, it's true. It doesn't matter how much you like studying as a young person. The older you get, you can't pay that prerequisite attention anymore. Of course. So you're not going to have that energy forever. So why are you putting the energy into things that is not productive and is not helping you achieve anything? Does it make you? For instance, you have the same 24 hours, that everybody has. And 24 hours, don't say I have. You really do not have time. Nobody has time. Does it make, people say, no, don't worry, I still have time. You really do not have time. You really don't. and you're not going to be energized forever. So time and energy are finite resources. That means they are limited. They're not infinite. They are very finite. They are limited. And thus, whatever you choose to engage with should align with objective sets. This is one of the things. See, don't do things that does not have it has to have objectives. Why are you attending that conference? Are you attending the conference because it matches up to an objective you have set, or because, forgive me please, you want to meet someone? Oh, my favorite speaker is going to be around. That is why I'm attending. The more you categorize things under goals and objectives, you will find out that many things are not needed. Of course, it's true. This is how you buy time. It's called discipline, where you can discipline yourself to tell you, this thing, I really do not need this thing. And I'm going to be honest with myself to tell myself I don't need this thing. So you're not even going to waste time, you're not going to waste energy, and you're not going to waste resources in terms of financials. Selective intelligence. Your path is clear. Your path is, you have a clear-cut, understanding of what you want to do. It gives you a sense of purpose. That's, between, and this is why people write, what is it called? New Year resolutions and don't meet up with it. It's just all everywhere. How do they say the word? It's all over the place. You just all over the place. One moment you're laying up on graphics design, the next moment you're on digital marketing, next tomorrow you're already selling bags online. The upper whatever, you're already into cryptocurrency. You're like anywhere, anyhow. That is not how life works. Great people don't live that way. And should I tell you one very funny thing? Because you are a creative being, I used to say this to some of my students. Because you are a creative being, your mind is always going to give you options. How do I mean? One, and this it happens to me to a whole lot of time, where ideas would always pop up in your mind. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them. Do you understand what I just said? Because you are a creative being as a person, you have an healthy mind, you renew your mind daily, you have a productive mental space. You would always, especially if you are giving yourself to learning how to identify challenges, innovation, solving problems. Oh dear Jesus, you are in for it. So you would always have ideas. Does it mean you should execute them? No, you are going to be trapped. It's called an innovator's course, where you're working on something. The next moment you are not done with that stuff, something else already piqued your interest. You would abandon the one you're working on, start out on something new, and you'll find out that you only have starting, like they will say in Nigerian parlance. You have starting, you don't have finishing. You can start stuff, but you can't sustain them. You can start stuff, but you don't know how to, you don't know how to bring them to their peak. You die out almost at the beginning of things. It's because there is no. All of these things answer to selective intelligence. Does it make a lot of sense? You really do not have time or energy to waste. Strategic focus and priorities. Don't let me put myself in trouble. Okay, moving on. I wrote and I said, learn how to tie involvement to goals, and these goals have to cumulatively add to your growth. If it is not adding to your growth, drop it. This thing I'm putting my energies into, this course I'm trying to study, this class I'm taking, even if it's the mental application class you're listening to, ask yourself, this selective intelligence that I'm listening to, how will it add to my cumulative growth? If it's not adding to it, that means in the next 5-10 years, I don't see myself needing this thing I'm learning. Why are you putting the energy into it? I know they say no knowledge is lost, but the time you wasted to learn that stuff is precious too. Does it make a whole lot of sense? No knowledge is lost is interesting when you're learning, you learned it, along the way. Not that you actively spend time and energy to learn it. Then you've spent, that's when most people don't have strength to do the right thing anymore. You've spent close to 5 years learning the wrong thing, people don't have that strength to go back again. So you're telling me I'm going to start from scratch again? Well, now this wrong thing, we'll just continue with this wrong thing and then just keep moving on. That's why people stay, they stay zealous, extremely zealous with errors. Literally, the stuff is erroneous, but they will stay with it, and they are zealous because they can't imagine going back to go and relearn. And I remember I said it to you that unlearning is hard. So before you even relearn, you can't relearn, the right stuff with, it wrong, it doesn't work that way. You have to first take time to purge the wrong stuff you have learned, which most times takes times 2 of the time, times 2 or 3 of the time it took you to learn it in the first place. Oh, come on, nobody has that time actually. Are we still together? Number 1. Number 2, filtering information and sources. This might sound controversial, but you do not need to know everything. I repeat again, you do not need to what? Know everything. You can't know everything. That's first the challenge. You really cannot know everything. So what you can only do is know everything around the area of your focus. So if, for instance, you're going to be, in the education industry and you're going to be doing something around the education, know everything you can within the education scope. No, you are trying to know education. You're also trying to know government and politics. Am I saying the government and politics does not affect learn the educational side of the government and politics? Learn more about the Minister of Education. There's nothing that concerns. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say? That this is where dependency comes in. That there are areas where I'm deficient at. There's somebody else that is the area of their strength. The reason why people want to know everything is because they don't want to be dependent on people. And the very funny thing, life was built that every man is dependent on his neighbor. Of course, it's truth. So you can't be independent. I think there's a saying that says no man is an island. You really cannot know everything. So why not be the one who knows everything around that your area of focus, that if anyone ever asks a question or asks something or has a problem, and you can say, like, Apostle Peter at the beautiful gates, silver and gold I don't have. I may not know anything about this. I may not know anything about this, but on this subject, oh, come on. When should we start the class? How long do you want the class to go for? Do you understand? Beyond just the class, I have solution. I have track record. I have a superior intelligence on this. If it's on this subject matter, if it's on any other subject matter, maybe we might have to call someone. But this is where specialization is built. And I said here, only seek information that aligns with goal sets. Disregard. We already said that in the first part. This is about filtering information. Only seek information that aligns with goals. Your goal sets, disregard the rest. You don't need it. It doesn't matter how much someone beside you is saying, wow, if you have not learned this thing, you are missing out. Ask yourself, do you need it? Don't always lie to yourself and say, what if I now go and need it tomorrow? No. Today is enough to fix. I think there's a portion of the scripture that says, today's problem is enough to fix itself. Don't always think, what if you would need it in your tomorrow, the knowledge will pop up. I can assure you twice. It has happened to me many times. When you have the opportunity to learn something, you're like, do I need this thing at this current phase? The answer is no, so let it go. But then later in the future, you now came to the point where you needed that stuff. Knowledge don't die, they only change form. It's like the law of energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be converted. They change form. So it might the knowledge prerequisites would now come with the relevance of the current time when you need it. Don't have outdated information all up in your head and waste time learning something that will soon be outdated. Not even with the way information and it is being is being outdated in matter of seconds and minutes, not to even talk about days. Are we still together? I wrote here and I said, else you will come into a mental trap. I wrote this here and I said, sometimes the jack of all trade will not be relevant in certain setting where growth and professionalism is discussed. You can be a jack of all trades, good for you. But when it comes to growth and professionalism, no, you will never be called into that setting. When people want to talk about profession, they look for people that this individual is a captain of this industry, he is an authority on this subject. Imagine Albert Einstein learning, finance, and then engineering, then science, then he learns art and culture too, and say, jack of all trades. Would you know Albert Einstein today? Number 3, because of our time, choosing relationships. Selective intelligence too is very important when it comes to choosing a relationship. I wrote here and I said, of course, the popular saying, birds of a feather flock together. You are a sum total of your community. Every great man, or every great men and women, or every great person chose their community. It's the power of choice. It's selective intelligence. You know people, I think the scripture says, for you, I know no man by the flesh. You don't know people by how they look. You know people by what they can offer. If you want to focus on people by how they look, many persons would have made a lot of mistakes. Choosing friends, choosing relationships, choosing partners, choosing spouses. Literally, you know people by what they can offer. And remember, it has to be goal-oriented. If this relationship is not aligning with the goals you've set, this is how you choose friends. This is how you grow with people that are going to become, you are growing with a community of people that everyone is going to be successful together. You don't pick friends out of emotions, and you don't pick community based on emotion. You don't join a community because someone joined the community and you're now feeling left out. I wrote here and I said it is better. I don't know who said this quote. The person is unknown, but I loved the quotes. It is better to be by yourself and have no friends than to be like your friends and have no self. Like, it's better to be alone, and then you still have your sense of worth. You still have, your goals, your visions, everything you're trying to achieve with your life, than to be in a company of people and you've lost all of those stuff. Identify, filter, choose your community and friends. Identify, filter, employ selective intelligence when choosing relationships. This person, if it's only one person you have, is better than having a clique of people and none of you is going anywhere. And all you discuss is the next party to attend. No corporate goals, no transformative agendas. Everybody's just enjoying, and they say you only live once. YOLO. Enjoy your life while you can. Don't be in that kind of circle. You shouldn't be found in that kind of circle. So this is all the class, everything we're going to be discussing on selective intelligence tonight, or whenever you're listening to this from. Recap of all of this. Extremely focus on your focus. Does it make any sense? Focus gives you what? Speed. Extremely focus on, employ selective intelligence into everything you do every day. It's one of the ways to give yourself speed, even daily. If you're attending this place, is it going to hard to you? If it's not harding to you, why should you be founded? It's going to look, and you're like, don't you want people to enjoy their life? There are still enjoyment and fun and entertainment that adds to you. Somebody was like, do you see movies? I see movies a lot, and I don't see movies like, I don't see movies too. I see movies, and I see intellectual movies, like real intellectual movies. Does it make a whole lot of sense? I see movies that add to me. So even while I'm seeing a movie, it's not enjoyment. It's not ha 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 ha. Do I laugh in movies? Of course, if it's funny. I'm not a sadist. All right, it's if it's funny, I'll laugh. They are nice. One thing I found out is that intellectual, what is it called? Comedy or intellectual puns are very beautiful, especially when you're intellectual. You get like they're not, comedy or something that is, it has to paint a very, bad image for you to laugh. There are intellectual puns and intellectual comedy, and that you just laugh when you understand it. You just laugh and you're like, boy, hey, that's That's the beauty of life. Come on. Okay, I see movies, but these movies had to add to me. Of course, it's truth. Of course, it's truth. If it doesn't add to me, once the first few scenes, I will know. I don't. I'm out. Yes. For instance, this is the only movie coming to my head. I'm trying to remember a movie, but none of them is so. Let's imagine Inception. So Inception is a movie about how people operate in the dream world, right? So they can enter into your dream to steal information from you and talk so much about the subconscious mind. So beautiful. It helps me as a person. Oh wow, okay, this is how this thing is. Not watching a movie and from the beginning to the end, they are just, no offense, no offense, no offense, Indian movies, and they are jumping from one place to another. And they are beautiful Indian movies, anyways. But oh dear Jesus, in some of them you just have to pray and say, God. But do you understand what I'm trying to say? Selective intelligence applied into every aspect of an average person's life. I believe you got value for them tonight. Is that correct? Yes. If you really got value for time, you can input, just type in the comments. Let us know what you specifically learned. I learned this stuff, I learned this stuff, I learned this stuff, I learned this stuff, I learned this stuff. Okay, so put it into the comments, so that somebody else that is just coming across the video can be like, oh, what are these things they are learning? Let me watch the video also. And also, if this really, is value to you, make sure you share to friends and families. Share to someone you believe will need this. Literally, it's I believe it's short, and then they can watch in very few, all of that. Now, if you're new to our platform, you can engage beyond the school wall, with the links in the description. Engage our community, join our classes, register for our schools. This is just a fragment of what you can learn from the institution. Thank you so much, everyone. See you in the next one. Please be safe.